Welcome to What's in a Game. On today's show, we're doing our first live stream.
Yes. And
Will
I
and I
already
are
see Exquisite and Zamora are friends in the chat. What's up?
Yay! We have friends in the chat. Will and I are going to be breaking down how the Denver Nuggets and Oklahoma City Thunder got all tied up. Then we're going to be taking your questions about these crazy NBA playoffs so far. Stay tuned. Woo! So fun. All right. Welcome back to What's in a Game. I'm Grace Jean here with my co-host Will Jones. How are you doing today, Will?
Well, I'm excited for this stream, but yesterday was a little bit tough with that loss. But I feel better after sleeping on it, of course. I said to you and on Locked On for people who watch that was like maybe the toughest loss I've experienced since sometime before the championship. And they instantly cited, of course, Game 7 with Minnesota last season. But that one, we were coming off the championship. I wasn't trying to be too greedy. It's hard to win back to back. Just feel like my expectations were so much lower, and Jamal was hurt. And we just looked like we weren't going to get out of that series. And even though we were up 20, I still didn't feel safe in that game.
Yeah, you didn't just because of how so many games earlier that season had gone, for
And
sure.
versus the Thunder yesterday, it was such a big opportunity to go 3-1 and have a commanding control of the series and to not get it, even though we're not eliminated and it's still open for us to win, definitely was tough on us. So I'm at least dealing with it better. We're not out of it. I've listened to Matt console the fan base, so here we are. Here we are to continue talking about it for anyone who needs it.
Yeah, Matt Moore, he's so funny because when everyone's like really high on the team, he's like, hold on a second. You watched this team lose to the Wizards twice this season. And now when everyone's like, it's Jover, he's like, it's literally not.
I know. And I think Jokic not being able to play like we know he can is adding another layer of desperation and frustration when I watch these games. But yeah, we'll talk about it. But CT's of the chat too, and Kirby's left hand. Hello, thank
Yay,
you for
let's
being here.
go. Hello, Mr. Exquisite Nugget. He
Yes,
missed you, Will.
I know. I've missed everyone.
All right. Quick programming note, as I will say on every video. Please do us a favor and hit the like and subscribe button. It really helps us out. We're trying to hit 1,000 subs before the end of the playoffs. We're currently at 895 right now, so that'd be really awesome if we could get there. Let's start with our team, the Denver Nuggets, and their current series with the Oklahoma City Thunder. The last show we did, Will, you were behind the camera for that one. We did our series preview for Thunder Nuggets with Matt Brooks from Nuggets.com, from Nuggets Digital. He works for the team, right? He's our state-sponsored media, our insider, right? We talked about a lot of interesting you know, wrinkles, X's and O's, matchup questions going into this series, and we'll dig into some of how that's actually played out over the first 4 games. But what's been your overall impression of the series so far? Like, do the games look like you expected them to look? Are there any particular performances that have stood out to you as surprising from a particular player, whether it's a matchup question or whatever?
Our defenses look better than I expected, and
Yeah, second series in a row, right? Outside of that game too.
yeah, exactly.
Where the Thunder, did they tie or break the record for points in a playoff half?
Oh man, I don't even remember.
So outside of the worst half of defense in NBA playoff history, the defense has actually looked pretty good.
That was the
I
most
agree.
write-off game of all write-off games. But,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
That's clearly how the Nuggets players felt as well.
yeah, for
That was
sure.
evident.
So it's like the whole comparison of how good their defense would be in limiting what we can do on offense versus our lackluster defense going up against their offense, which I wasn't really sure how they were going to look because their guys can go cold from shooting at times. You never know who will step up on offense outside of SGA and J-Dub. We won a game where J-Dub was really, really good in game 3. But Alex Caruso can just turn it on at any point and score. So I think even though our defense is stepping up a little bit, and there's been 3 close games in this series so far and only one really big blowout.
Yeah.
They're definitely limiting what we can do on offense. I shouldn't say more than I thought because they have a really good defense. But, with Jokic, you just figure he will find a way to figure it out. But with how they've been loading up on him and daring others to shoot, sometimes the guys aren't going to make those shots, as we saw in the first quarter of game 4, which was horrible. So that is sad to see, but otherwise it's going as expected, I would say.
Yeah, I agree with that. I knew their defense would be really good, tighten up, all of that. I think less so than my surprise going into the series. I guess I'm surprised since game 1, our offense has just been doesn't know what to do. And that's in large part because of how flustered Jokic has looked against this defense since game 1, where he was great. He looked better than I thought he would look against this team, and I already thought he was going to look pretty good, right? We got a bit of run with that post I put out from that comparison I made during our series preview of Jokic taking the ankle weights off like Rock Lee, right? Going from Zubats to this front court. The main difference between game 1 and these last 3 games is that OKC is just no, we're sending help immediately now. We can't let Jokic go one-on-one. They know.
Yeah.
But even I would say Jokic has definitely struggled one-on-one in certain situations against Hartenstein more than I thought he would, because there are still some possessions where he is a lot OKC is allowing him to go one-on-one. He's not able to be effective. Part of that's reffing and he's being obviously fouled, but a lot of times I'm just I don't even know, he's not getting anywhere. He's not creating separation. He's not he clearly doesn't look comfortable. It looks totally different from that game 1 where I would say he was pretty dominant. They couldn't stop him, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the big changes too is just even in that game 1, he was missing a good number of shots, but he would get his own misses, and that possession just ended up a scoring possession regardless, because he'd either get fouled or he'd get the putback. OKC's done an excellent job at keeping us off the offensive glass in this series since game 1.
And even when we grab one, it's a struggle. There's multiple tips.
Yeah.
People just trying to fly around and get it. And, Mike can't even grab a rebound with 2 hands. He lost that one yesterday where he tried to get it with 1 hand and missed it. And that was a pretty big rebound that he wasn't able to get, which was sad to see. But, yeah, it's been a struggle.
Yeah. We're going to do Q&A at the end, but we can definitely take questions as the topics come up. One of the great ones from the chat here is from CT Fazio. So this is more about our zone defense. So because we're talking about how good the defense has been in this series, we can talk about that a little bit. CT asks, why has SGA struggled to navigate our zone? Will, do you want to bring up some of the clips that we have from game 3? Is that right? So this was the game that the Nuggets won in overtime. And in this game, the Thunder's offense completely sputtered in that fourth quarter and overtime. And a large part of that was because Shai was struggling against basically a box and one. I think that was the most effective look against him. We were just, cutting off all his driving angles. It's end of game. He's trying to make stuff happen himself. He's not necessarily like AG's playing the drive here, and SGA could kick out, but AG's kind of stunting and getting back to J-Dub. And that's it, right? Like SGA's superpower, as all superstars have one, is his driving ability. So if you're able to cut those driving lanes off, and this is some of the best defense that Christian Braun has been playing on an individual level all season. Like, I don't even think it's particularly close. If you've been watching the show all season, you know that I've been somewhat lamenting Christian Braun's defense.
Yeah, I mean, Shai also just seemed like he was struggling shooting in game 3, but CB did do a really good job at the end of the game and even in overtime against Shai, whereas I thought he struggled a little bit throughout the game. But yeah, against the zone, I feel like I go back to Matt Brooks, what he was kind of saying, where you can just still run your offense against the zone, and I think sometimes teams don't realize that and they kind of freak out. Whereas like yesterday, saw Shai just like reject a screen and just kind of go to the basket, and just, you can't really change up what you're doing too much when that's happening. But also the Thunder just shot themselves out of it, and we never adjusted and went away from it, which was really annoying. But I mean, CT, you're the coach. You're a great coach, I believe.
Do we know that? I think CT's team was knocked out of the playoffs pretty early. No offense to his middle schoolers. They might be awesome, and it might be because of CT. But I'm just playing. He's a great friend of the show. I think he's been our most frequent guest.
Yeah, definitely.
No, CT knows him. CT knows I'm kidding.
But I think, SGA, his playmaking is still like a work in progress. And
yes, absolutely. I think that as well.
And I think as like a team, they may not be as in sync, like as good as they are. And I mean, they can really go cold on offense. And I think, Hartenstein and Chet, who they're players who can flash into a zone and get an entry pass and like try and play out of it. I feel like they just haven't had experience doing that either. And I just think they're not forcing the ball to flow more through the zone as much as they could, but they definitely got the better of us.
Because that's the thing. 4. Like, people talk about the different things that you can do to like beat a zone, and like the first thing I love that you said is that coaches will say this all the time. Like Malone would do this too. Like when we get flustered by a zone, and like in an end of a game, lose a game, whatever, we would just, and this happened in the Clippers series. After game 6, Adelman said at the end of that game, he's like, well, what happened with that zone? He's like, we just stared at it. Like, we kept trying to solve the zone. But you can run your offense. You can set screens. You can run pick and roll. There was that one possession, like you said, where game 4, where Shai's like, oh, I'm going to run pick and roll and reject the screen, which is what Shai does. That's what he does. And I think for the most part in this series, Christian has been doing a good job at forcing Shai to use the screen, which he's not accustomed to. So I think that's a tendency that he has honed in on. Sorry, brain fart moment. Honed in on and done a good job honing in on in this series, and forcing Shai into less comfortable positions, because he like, if you look at the numbers, he's a great efficient pick and roll player, but a lot of the times he's calling for a screen either to get a mismatch to attack in isolation, or he's calling for a screen so he can reject the screen and just get downhill, right? So most of the time we're able to force him to use the screen and kind of navigate through the middle of the floor. And especially in those double big looks, which even in yesterday's game, which OKC won, those were not super offensively efficient lineups for OKC either. That lane is so much more clogged with Hartenstein out there, as opposed to a single big look with like just Chet or even just Hartenstein, because then you have nobody knows where to be. It's a little, which makes Denver's defensive job easier, I think, right? But for the most part, the Thunder have not, like as a team, like destroyed our zone outside of that game 2. And we talked about this with Matt Brooks on the series preview, how he had all those clips about how OKC's zone attack, their offense, had evolved over the course of the series, over the course of the season, in the regular season. And almost all of those clips where they successfully, got good stuff against the zone involved Alex Caruso in some way. He's kind of like their slow-mo in a way, where he's that like coach on the floor telling people where to stand, telling people where to screen. When he has the ball, he knows, okay, this is easy. Like, I can just drive and collapse the defense and kick. I don't have to worry about finishing myself, which is good because he's not a good finisher, right? Getting the ball to the right place in the zone. He's just been so good for them as a veteran presence.
The impact he's had is infuriating me, first of all.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he's been really good. And if Jokic is on him, they're quick to run actions with him, and Caruso can just pop off of that, too, and just hit a three easily.
Yep.
And he's one of the guys who, out of the Thunder's bench...
I will say you live with that shot. He made a couple of them in that game. You still live with that shot because you want to cut off SGA's drives.
Yeah.
And he also missed some of them, too.
Right. And, the game yesterday was just everyone was playing horribly, and it was just about what random players are going to hit their threes and just get you over the top.
Yeah.
And Caruso had, I don't know if you want to go to we had clips of, Case and Wallace hitting threes in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. So we can actually just jump over to game 4.
Oh yeah. For sure.
In this game, which was the ugliest game possibly of the entire playoffs. And that's crazy because Warriors-Rockets did happen. But this was worse, I think. Okay, so this I need to talk about. So this is non-Jokic minutes in the fourth quarter. And J-Dub, gets a screen from Caruso. We're zoning up on J-Dub for some reason. It's interesting because we hadn't really done that much in this series. We had almost exclusively reserved our zone possessions for SGA. But in this game, in the fourth quarter, it's just the J-Dub led unit, and we're zoning up on him. He kicks out to Case and Wallace, who is a good 3-point shooter on the season, but he hadn't been shooting well in the series outside of game 2. And he made this shot. He made another one in the fourth quarter as well, but I think that was so this one is, Jokic on the floor. Caruso gets the ball to the right place. For some reason, Russ is closing out on him, which is annoying, but Caruso doesn't even think about shooting that shot.
Hey, Caruso's even open too, yeah. He could have.
Yeah.
And the fact that he didn't and then passed a Case on Wallace and he made it.
Yep.
Damn.
Again, Caruso killing us here. But that's what it was in that fourth quarter in this game was they got that little bit of juice from these guys on their bench to help get them back over the hump because Denver had taken a lead in that third quarter.
We also have the Aaron Wiggins.
This was annoying because this was just bad transition defense. So collapsing on J-Dub's drive in transition, and then Aaron Wiggins is just there. MPJ is guarding nobody.
Oh, this was a bad one from MPJ. Yeah, it was just running back. He didn't even pick up any.
Oh, you know what? Caruso was behind him.
Yeah, maybe he did. He thought he was going to be.
Yeah,
there.
So I don't know who was supposed to pick up Kaysen, but that's what happens. You get a push in transition, and you're able to create a 5-on-4. And that's what happened. And Jada made the right play kicking out there because he had not been finishing anything in this game. Yeah. I think before he made a 3 in the fourth quarter, late. He was 1 of 10 from the field. I think he finished the game 2 of 13. Yeah, 2 of 13 from the field after a monster game from him in game 3, right? Game 3 was the battle of the second options because SGA and Jokic were both.
That was such a good win for the Nuggets and just everyone doing their thing.
Yeah. SGA and Jokic were not their MVP selves, not even close. Right. But Jamal and Jada were picking up the slack, and I think both of them were amazing in that game. Just in terms of their shot making. But also, J-Dub has brought the defense in all of these games. I think he was pretty impactful defensively in game 4 as well.
Yeah, J-Dub. I was glad that we won the game that J-Dub went off. But, that doesn't mean the other games are going to go our way as we lost the one after that, but I was like feeling pretty good about our chances. But, Shai was like one of the only ones who looked like really in control in game 4.
You know what was interesting is I felt the exact same way. And when I went to check his box score, I was pretty surprised at his inefficiency.
Yeah, because it did feel like he was just, when everyone was just airballing and missing, he was like hitting his normal shots.
He was creating and hitting shots that you know he can make, even though he'd been missing some of them throughout the series. He finished 8 of 19, which isn't bad, but it's nowhere near his standard, right? A lot of misses from 2. He got a lot of, shots at the free throw line. So did Jokic, though. It was just those buckets felt different, right? Like you said, especially in a game this grimy, every bucket feels like incredible. There was like the Nuggets made 2 threes in the third quarter. There were more threes, but they hit like 2 in a row, and it was like it felt like a 20-0 run.
Yeah, when Christian Brown hits one, the crowd loves it and goes off, because that means, that's just even harder to stop if you're a defense. But I was feeling positive, like we had the game and going into the fourth quarter with a lead, and then, man, it was just disaster from there. Only 18 points in the fourth quarter. Just didn't start well and didn't close well, so it was brutal to see.
Yeah, absolutely. That 8-point first quarter was tough. I didn't even realize how bad. Like, I knew the end of the fourth quarter was bad because I was looking at all of how stifled like Jokic in particular was, and like Jamal wasn't able to like re-elevate to what he'd been in game 3 either. But we had 22 combined points in the first and fourth quarters of this game.
Yeah, that's like a down singular quarter for most teams, but
yeah.
But it's that matinee game. I don't know how much you think the time affected the team.
Yeah, I think it affected both teams is the thing. I said going into this game that I had no idea what to expect from either team. I knew that both would come out and be somewhat desperate. I thought that OKC would win this game because I thought they'd be more desperate than Denver. But that's not really how it played out. Like, I thought it would be like defensive desperation, right? But I thought Denver played good defense in this game, with the exception of the choices schematically in the fourth quarter, and then the transition lapse there by, I thought it was just MPJ, but it was really like everyone there. No one was communicating. The offense was just like no one could get anything going. Everybody was missing jumpers short on both teams. I think Denver didn't even make a jumper until the second quarter. The difference, I think, early, because OKC did lead most of this game before Denver took the lead in the third quarter, was they just did a better job of attacking in transition and semi-transition, as they had all series, and getting some of those easy looks that made it so that they didn't have to take as many jumpers as us, right? They were getting layups. They were getting free throws early. Eventually, I think the free throw desperation evened out, or the free throw disparity evened out. But that's something that's been a huge, I think, separator across all these games, is like OKC just plays faster. Like, they've been able to get easier stuff because they play faster. It's not just fast break points. It's just like getting into your offense quickly in semi-transition, creating some cross matches, whatever it is. And Denver has just been glacial, which you'd think, with how well the defense has been playing and how poorly OKC has shot in most of these games, Denver should have more opportunities to, be the transition team that they were in the regular season, but they have been slower than maybe at any point in the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
And like part of that you can attribute to OKC being such a good transition defense. Like, you don't get to be the number 1 defense in the league by giving up easy stuff. But like I said, it's not just about fast break points. It's just about like getting into your stuff quickly. And there are so many, there's a lot of low hanging fruit that Denver's just leaving there.
Yeah.
For the most part.
I think on some level, not letting the Thunder speed our pace up is probably a good thing for us too.
Right, to avoid turnovers, and I get that, but I think part of it is like decisiveness.
Yeah.
right? I think turnovers are more about indecision than speed necessarily, if
Right.
that makes sense,
But yeah,
right?
like when we can get transition buckets, that can be a good thing. I just think we just don't look as crisp in transition, even, and like are turning it over and trying to like find a shot and stuff like that. But when we can get that, I think that's a huge advantage if they can just finish at the rim. Like CB has good rim finishing. Haven't seen him get a lot of clean looks. They're just so good at contesting. Like, and sometimes they get the block. Sometimes it's just
Yep.
like a foul. But like we're not even shooting free throws that well. It feels like so that feels like a missed opportunity sometimes when
I
they just send us to
know.
the
Oh my
line.
gosh, so many missed free throws. Every time Peyton Watson steps up to the line, I'm like, please just don't miss both.
Yeah.
And he did that. At least he missed both free throws at least once in both of the last two games. And he definitely did in that game too. That game too, everything that could have possibly gone wrong did.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, I completely agree. And I like every time a free throw went in yesterday, I was just like, thank the heavens.
Yeah. Jamal missed some. Jokic obviously missed some with the
I think
elbow.
our first points in that game, free throws, it might have been
Yeah.
MPJ,
I think it
right?
was.
He made the first one, and I was like, no way, because he always misses the first one, and then he missed the second one.
That was the most frustrating thing I've seen watching us at the beginning of that game, just missing every shot, which I know can happen, but that shooting variance thing, like I know it's not, I always feel like shooting variance is against me personally. The teams that I want to make threes don't, and the teams that I don't want to make threes are on fire. Like the Thunder shoot 70% or whatever in game 2 in like the first half or whatever, like, and we shot 10%, 9% or whatever for a huge stretch. But I mean, how much do you think OKC was really affecting stuff versus us just like missing? Because I know it's like simple to be like just make your shots, but at some level, I think we are focused on a lot of different factors and details in trying to keep up on the defensive end, and especially with the fatigue joining in. Like sometimes I feel like we're hanging on by a thread a little bit when it comes to our fatigue and like trying to keep up the intensity, because as we saw like in game 2 we just kind of like let go of the rope and got blown out. But coming into each game and trying to like keep the game close, because we haven't been able to like hold a lead on them for a large period of time in this series yet. It's
I
been
think
rough.
so. Going into game 4, Denver had only led for 13% of the series,
Which is such a Nuggets
which
thing to do, to
is a very
still
Nuggets thing to do.
win 2
That,
games.
by the way, that stat comes from Todd Whitehead, Crumpled Jumper at Crumpled Jumper on Twitter. Uh, and he also mentioned that I think no team has ever won a playoff series where they lead for less than 25% of the series. So I was like, I'm kind of watching that to see if there's any one of these games where Denver wants to lead for any substantial portion. I get it. OKC's awesome team, right? 68 win team. They led for most of their season, like vast majority of it by a lot. But even in the games that we played them, even in the games that we lost, we would lead early and whatever. In all of these games in this playoff series, OKC has basically jumped out to leads early. The the difference being, I think maybe we led in Jokic's stint until like the end of the first quarter in game 1. And then it was like OKC almost all the way from there until obviously the very, very, very end
Hmm.
of that game, which was absolutely crazy. Anything you want to say about AG in this series? I feel like he's just been another like steady rock on both ends of the floor. He hasn't been as noticed in this one because like obviously Kawhi was his primary assignment in the first series. In this one, he's kind of doing a little bit of everything um, defensively, but offensively, I think he's been pretty steady, and then obviously has 2 standout moments in games 1 and 3, right?
Yeah. I mean, his three is just every time he shoots, I feel like it's going in. He was still like one of the only guys on the Nuggets who had it when the shooting was just not there. And I was like, we should start trying to like run through him a little more and find him some looks, because, he's
Yeah, we
just
should
like,
run some of Mike's sets for AG. It feels like sometimes, honestly.
Yeah.
He hit that one at the end of the game where it was a 5-point game. Game was over, like 5 seconds left.
I know,
And
he
he hits
still hit
that
it.
pull-up step back over iHeart and he banks it in.
I know, another like at the buzzer shot that he got in. It obviously didn't matter, but it's still good to see his shot is there. He's probably been the most consistent player. I mean, unfortunately, because Jokic has had these last 3 games. But yeah, the Nuggets just are not a team that comes out in the playoffs, it feels like, and just like punches first in the game. Like just from even the last couple seasons, the Wolves series last year, the Lakers series last year, it was just we're always coming from behind or trying to get the lead. Like we're the comeback kids, as Jamal said. But I would, except for Clippers game 7, we destroyed them, and the Clippers were really apathetic in that game. I felt like, and just didn't rise to the occasion. Which I don't know if the Thunder will get there or not. I'm wondering if at some point the Thunder will crack in a way where, something will just get to them. But so far they've held pretty steady.
I don't see this Thunder team as a team that's like the Clippers that just crack. That's not what happened to the Thunder last year either. They were outplayed. Like that's what had to happen. Like they're a good, solid team. They have a solid foundation under them. They're not a team that feels fragile, if that makes sense. They might lose, they might get outplayed, but they're rarely going to give the game away to you. I think game 1 was given away by Mark Daigneault.
Yeah. Some mistakes there.
And Chet Holmgren.
Yeah, giving us a life to get the game. The Nuggets can absolutely kill you.
There was the possession. I watch a lot of reaction videos for anybody who, I don't know. You might not know this because there's no way anybody would know this besides my fiance, who's like, Grace, again? How many times are you going to watch this game? But I love, various reaction channels on YouTube giving me different perspectives on every game. And one of them did a great job on that game 3, the last transition possession where Jamal pushes and then AG gets the open corner 3 and Chet's trying to close out, but it's too late. AG makes it, ties up the game that sends it to OT where the Nuggets win, right? On that possession, SGA gambles on Jamal in transition, doesn't get the ball, and that's why he falls behind. And that's what forced Chet to step up and try to take him and lose, not his man. AG wasn't his man. He was J-Dub's, but then J-Dub was like, I'll take this guy in the corner. Chet, you go recover to him. But it was too late at that point. So that wasn't necessarily even Chet's fault. That was SGA's fault.
And somehow the one guy who's probably the best 3-point shooter on our team right now is left open. And it was a miracle.
Wide open, the one shot that you shouldn't give up there when you're up 3, right?
Yeah. The Thunder might be able to learn a lot of these lessons in the series and still get out of it, of course, just because they have so much depth and talent that
we might have another game in the series like game 2 where it's like, okay, this has nothing to do with X's and O's. This is just like, we're going to outrun you. We're going to out-talent you.
Yeah, I mean, the margin for error is wider for them than us, where we have to play pretty perfectly or, and like I've been reading about how the lineups, even with like any of the starters out, it doesn't even matter. Like, are just so bad.
Yeah.
Like one starter's out, it's not working out.
Yeah, and those lineups weren't as bad in the regular season, but there were some indications throughout the year that, especially lineups, now that the rotation's shortened for the playoffs, I think some of those problems are maybe coming out a little bit more. But some of the indications throughout the regular season that we've been talking about on this show is like these lineups with Jokic, Russ, and Peyton together are not as good as they should be. And in the playoffs, they've just been bad. Mm-hmm. Right. In almost every game. Like there's been an exception. Like I think Clippers game 7 was obviously one where like those stagger units and the non-Jokic minutes were great. But a lot of these lineups with Jokic on and someone else and like others, like Jamal gets subbed out, whatever. By the way, Jamal has an ungodly on-off this playoffs. Like I think there's an 80-point swing in net rating when Jamal is on the floor versus off, just because of how bad those minutes have been. And that's essentially just the Jokic led units without Jamal. because Jamal's otherwise on the floor all the time. Like when Jokic is off, he's there with like very few exceptions. And obviously he's there for like the normal like starter, like core starters minutes. But the starters minutes have been good in these games, even in this last one where it felt like everyone sucked, especially early when we went down. I think the game started off like 8 to, what was that first quarter? The Thunder had like 20 points. Was it 8 to 18 in the first quarter? Something like that. They bounced back in a big way in that third quarter, and then they gave themselves a positive net rating despite the bad close at the end of the game, right? Like I think they ended up like a plus 10 net in that game again, which is just kind of madness. So again, the starters are good, and then no other lineups are good.
And that was part of the reason Adelman stayed with an 8-man rotation, of course, in the fourth quarter, and trying to like go to the zone, keep the best guys out there, the best lineups, and just close the game out and just have the slow squeeze on them. It didn't pan out that way. Do you think that was like, I mean, is Adelman going to take anything away from that? Because I don't know that I would other than like employing the zone, and maybe we could have gone away from that, but like shortening the rotation that much in that quarter, you lose the game. But I don't necessarily blame.
I don't think it was because of a short rotation.
Yeah, yeah.
And like everyone's talking about the minutes and stuff. I think this is like one of Jokic's lowest minute totals across the entire playoffs in this game. Now, to be fair, this is the first game where they have a 36-hour turnaround because they only had a day between games, and then it was a matinee game. So that's another 8 hours knocked off of what would be 48 hours rest, right? And that was bad. That like I said, it was the reason that I thought I didn't know what to expect from either team, and the game was even uglier than I predicted. For both teams, it was all of that. Plus at altitudes, like OKC looked really bad in this game. That's why it was such a missed opportunity. But the starters didn't actually play as many minutes as they had in previous games in this series. The turnaround time did play a role, but I don't think like a short rotation in the fourth quarter is like what the problem was, unless you want to blame like the mental lapses on like uber fatigue. And honestly, both teams, like we talked about, like, okay, OKC finally won their first clutch game in the series, and that's like a big deal. Their offensive execution still wasn't good down the stretch of this game. It was just like they got more stops on us than we got on them, and we got lots of stops on them in that fourth quarter.
Yeah, it could have gone either way. It was just they hit those threes in the zone.
I mean, that was early, but even late in the game when it was just like SGA and J-Dub trying to make stuff happen, it was just like, okay. There was one nice drive and layup that J-Dub had, and that was a big deal. But there were like bunnies that Jokic missed in that fourth quarter.
Oh, man,
and obviously threes that were missed, jump shots that were missed. Jamal like couldn't muster the legs to make anything. He did hit like one midi, I think, that like pulled it close before. Yeah. Anyway, OKC pulled away. They win that game. But their offensive execution clutch time still wasn't good. So it's not like I have like a ton more confidence in them where I'm just suddenly like, oh, OKC figured out how to play in the clutch. They're going to win all the close games now in the series, and Denver lost their edge there. It's more like I feel with clutch games most of the time is it's about execution. So the team that is not playing CTE ball is going to have a slight edge there, but they're 50-50 games essentially, right? They come down to a possession or two, and sometimes the ball bounces your way and sometimes it doesn't. And that's why Denver having to execute to such a degree that they not only make all these games close, but win those close games always felt like a less sustainable formula in this series. What I will say is, one, I didn't expect Dagnall to hand us the game on a silver platter in game one. So this is me explaining away my now defunct OKC in 5 pick in this series. But two, I did underestimate the resilience of this team. Even after game 2, where I was like, okay, this felt like Clippers game 3, and I had totally written them off almost after Clippers game 3 as well. And when I say resilience, it was more about the defense. Like I did underestimate how well they'd be playing defensively in these playoffs in both series. Now, of course, a lot of that relies on giving up open 3-point shots that sometimes burn them anyway to these teams. But they have been playing a lot harder. They have been executing their schemes a lot better than they were in the regular season. I think even better than they were in the Clippers series. But it does help that OKC has this issue where you see this game, and of course we lost it, so, whatever. But SGA is the only guy who's creating anything. And like you said, every one of the buckets that he did make felt huge because nobody else could do anything. J-Dub, 2 of 13 from the field. He's trying his darndest to get something going for this team. I appreciate the aggression, but we talked about this at the beginning of the year where we said that like Denver and OKC had made similar bets about trying to get secondary on-ball creation from these incredibly young players. And obviously for Denver, it hasn't even worked out like even a little bit, right? Like Peyton Watson's not that guy. Julian Strawther can't defend well enough to be that guy for them in a playoff series. And with the Thunder, like they're asking so much more of J-Dub because he's a starter. Like he has to be SJ's number 2 guy. And that's why that game 3 was so impressive. He's been not good in the other 3 games in this series, but it's somewhat understandable because he is a third-year player who was drafted for his defense. So the fact that he gave you that game 3 was incredible.
Yeah. Zamora's asking, is he the only one that isn't impressed by OKC? I tweeted at the beginning of game 1 that I also wasn't that impressed with him. Maybe because I wanted to troll a little bit and was having some fun. But it did feel like I could see the path of the Nuggets winning this series when I was just like seeing. Well, granted, Jokic had an amazing game that game. So I felt a little better about where we were at. And every game since, Jokic hasn't been able to put an imprint on the game as much on the offensive end especially, which is really tough. But I kind of feel like it's yes and no. Like, I do think OKC's defense is taking away a lot of what Jokic wants to do, which makes us just not as potent because that's like your core identity. But it's not like the Nuggets are completely out of it. And I think we match up, like the idea that we match up well with them on paper is still like there. They haven't solved Jokic, even though I think they're severely limiting him. Some of it is what the OKC Thunder are doing, and some of it is just the Nuggets and the roster and just like guys not hitting their shots because they're going to be dared to hit shots, and Russ makes them sometimes. P-Watt makes one every so often. CB will hit one, but on the whole, they haven't been consistent enough to punish them yet. I expect both teams to still do this type of strategy, and hopefully we just end up making more plays at the end of the day. But yeah, it's going to be a battle of fatigue and mental toughness and physical toughness. Hopefully, with this rest coming up, it can even out a little bit because the Thunder were a little more rested coming into the series. We were not. But now that we played 4 games, hopefully the Thunder are a little bit more tired. And even though they're also getting rest, us getting rest is huge. So I'm hoping we can even out that difference a little bit. But how do you feel about the Thunder? Are you very impressed with what they've been doing?
Yeah, I would say unimpressed. Their defense has been better than I thought it would be because of how much they have been able to limit Jokic. But offensively, I did not have high expectations for this Thunder team offensively. And I thought they were pretty good in games 1 and 2, and it helped that they hit their shots, right? Like you have to make your open jump shots. But that's been the main question with this team offensively is, are these dudes going to hit their threes in big moments and whatever? And they did in games 1 and 2. They didn't in games 2 and 3 until obviously Aaron Wiggins and Cason Wallace hit a couple of big ones to get them back in that game, and that was huge. But otherwise, Dort has not been that guy that he was in the regular season. Alex Caruso has, so kind of up and down with the shot making. The offensive process has been way worse than I thought it would be, and I didn't think it would be good. I had no idea that we would be able to limit SGA as much as we have.
Yeah.
Just based on what I'd seen in the regular season. But I think Christian's done a great job of studying his tendencies and cutting off not just his driving lanes and all that, but forcing him into the least efficient aspect of his shot diet. And SGA can make a lot of these shots like he has. That's why he shot 55% from 2 as a guard in the NBA, which is impressive. On like a largely jump shot based diet. But he hasn't been making the shots in this series. And I think he's tired. Like, that's the thing with both Jokic and SGA. Like, the Thunder are doing a great job limiting Jokic, and we're doing a great job limiting Shai. But in terms of their process, I just feel like both guys are tentative and tired and worn down from putting up these MVP caliber seasons this year.
Mm-hmm.
And being such a big part of the offensive creation for their teams.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think is, and it seems to be mentally wearing on both of them, and that's why they're both like a little slow. SGA has a bit of an edge there because his game is inherently like him operating on instinct is going fast, and so automatically he's creating advantages. Jokic, since game 1, hasn't been operating anywhere near that level, and his game is more like deliberate and all of that. And OKC is a great team at really punishing you if you're trying to be like slower and deliberate and all of that. So
yeah,
I've been less impressed with Shai. He looks worse than he did last year's playoffs, and I thought he wasn't super efficient in the Dallas Mavericks series, but he always looked like he kind of like knew what he was trying to get to. So I guess that's like a testament to like Christian Brown has been a better defender on him than Derrick Jones Jr.
Yeah.
But that Mavs team was a good defensive team. So maybe it also speaks to just like the Denver Nuggets have been like on that level defensively as a team.
Especially with the idea that the Nuggets do not have the same rim protection that the Mavs did in that series, where that just took away a lot of what the Thunder might have been able to do to be comfortable on offense. They can try to like use that dribble penetration that gives them a huge edge on offense often against the Nuggets, which you would think would be very bad for us in terms of the matchup, but we've been able to hold up and like keep these games close despite that. And Jokic has gotten some blocks, and AG's gotten some blocks. We're still like contesting, I think, and staying with guys, which is amazing to see. Like, I'm proud of CB. Hopefully he keeps that up. But how concerned are you about Jokic? Because the fatigue's definitely a thing. He has to play with intensity on the defensive end for sure. He
has been largely outside of that first half especially, but really that whole game too.
Yeah. But like he was doing the same in the Clippers series. That's 7 games right there where he's doing a lot on both ends. Here's another series, might go 7, might go 6. This is a lot of wear and tear on him. His elbow seems to be bothering him for sure. I will make the excuse, of course, because I'm a Nuggets fan, so I don't care. But, I don't know how injured he is or not. But clearly, I think something's off with him injury-wise, as well as the fact that OKC is swarming. Like, because even the Chet and Hartenstein roaming and doubling is one thing, but I think the Thunder can double with other personnel, too, on Jokic and, like, jump and cause problems and issues all around the half court for the Nuggets. But how are you feeling about Jokic and his games so far? Because we really want to see him take off on offense and get some looks. I don't know. I think it's like a team issue. Like, I think the team can do more to try to get him something inside, because he's operating a lot from the perimeter right now. And I don't know if there's a way that we can adjust to that, because it's not working out right now, especially if his shot's not on.
So one of the things that I've been talking about with OKC ever since last year's series against Dallas is that they look to be missing secondary rim pressure, especially. Outside of SGA, nobody on that team was really slashing. You'd think that'd be Jada, but he was more comfortable pulling up, and he was not making his jump shots in that series. Chet was just not that big of a part of the offense. on that team last year. This year, it feels like Denver has the same problem, except it's OKC has taken away Jokic's post-ups, which is the primary mode of rim pressure for Denver. And, he tries to pump fake and drive from the three-point line again. And we talked about this during the Clippers series, being hesitant on that shot. And I understand it because he also hasn't been making his threes. He went, was it 0 of 10 last game? Or in game 3, and Denver somehow won that game. But that lack of secondary rim pressure, and look, we have Russ off the bench, but you need somebody who is a threat to finish, someone that the defense will collapse on and who can kick out, and someone who can actually finish those shots, like make a layup off a drive. Jamal does it occasionally, but it's not his game. So taking away Jokic's rim pressure. So I brought up the stats here because I wanted to see what Denver was shooting at the rim in this series and what OKC was shooting. We're like holding to the Thunder to like 63% from at the rim, which isn't bad. That's like middle of the pack. Denver's currently shooting 48% at the rim, which is dead last of all the teams that made the second round. But not only that, we're taking the fewest attempts at the rim per game, and it's like, okay, not pace adjusted, but all these games in round 2, they've all been slow. Like, that's just how all these teams are playing it outside of the Pacers-Cavs series. So that is incredibly concerning because Denver led the league in rim attempts. Mm-hmm. So you see how disrupted our offense gets when Jokic can't post up and be deliberate and all of that. And the reason that I can't put an injury excuse on that, because it's like, it's one thing if he's missing shots. He's not getting his assists, and a lot of his assists come from generating shots at the rim for other guys, and that's not happening because of how OKC is, playing cuts and all of that. They're basically the Clippers defense, but better in that regard. It's like if OKC had Zubats, the series would be over, in my opinion, right? Because game 1 wouldn't have happened. Game 1, Jokic wouldn't have happened. But what was I saying? So outside of post ups, like we're not getting the transition stuff because OKC is both a good transition defense and we don't press the issue unless the lane is like right there. Like something that I lament about Christian in particular, because I'm thinking about the guys who do operate in transition. Jamal will do this sometimes where he presses in transition, doesn't necessarily get all the way to the rim, but he kind of gets into the teeth of defense, deforms things somehow, creates a bit of an advantage before we like start our offense, and we're attacking like a semi-scrambled defense. Christian, when there's not a wide open driving lane to the rim, he stops behind the 3-point line, and the defense is completely let off the hook. Right? It was in game 4 in the second half, so in that third quarter especially, Christian stopped doing that, was finally not only getting all the way downhill in transition, but also had a few possessions where he'd stop short, but not behind the 3-point line, like gets into the paint and then like lets us kind of, our semi-transition offense starts to get going against a semi-scrambled defense, right? That's not happening. Like we're letting OKC all the way off the hook with the pace that we've been playing in this series. And that means that's Jokic, but it's also the whole team. And like Jokic has been the decision-making speed just isn't there. And that's why he's averaging 4 assists per game in this series.
Yeah, and there's just times where he's making passes that are right into lanes that OKC's occupying, which I don't see a lot of the time from him usually, but that is what the Thunder do. So, that's going to happen from time to time. I just thought
there were so many where you're just like, wait, what were you even trying to do there?
Yeah, and I figured at some point Jokic would adjust and figure it out, and he still can. There's 3 games left, but so far he hasn't been able to. I think there's so many factors that play into this. It's not, I think it's everything combined. Like Jokic is struggling a little bit. The Thunder are playing good defense. The other guys maybe aren't as crisp on their decision making. So I think it's going to take a team effort to figure this out, especially Adelman trying to find a way, if he can, to open it up for Jokic and get him going. But yeah, I completely agree with you about how they're taking away the paint. I mean, that's what the Nuggets do. Teams are going to try to limit that, and so far the Thunder.
But it's the way that they're taking away the paint, in that we're making it so easy for them to do that. Like, there are lots of teams that you can pack the paint on, and they're still able to get their attempts up there. Like the Orlando Magic have 0 people that can make a jump shot. And they're still able, because they have guys that can, and their offense stinks. Like, don't even, this is not me having like offensive envy of the Orlando Magic here at all. But something, for example, that Paolo does sometimes that I want him to do more is, like, he's such a good driver and slasher, especially if he's like catching and going on the move. Jokic, like, he'll catch, and Jamal does this too, right? He'll catch and survey for a second before he drives. And this OKC defense, even more so than the Wolves last year, you have to just keep going if you're going to do anything to not only create an advantage, but extend it and actually, capitalize on it and create like a good shot. You're going to have to keep moving, keep bodies moving, keep the ball moving.
The windows are so slow. They're gonna recover.
Yeah, they recover because they have such great length, and these are smart defenders, right? With like young, a great nose for the ball.
They're smart too. So they've been doing it.
Well, these are like, this is what they do. This is what they've done all season, is turn you over.
Yeah.
We actually avoided turnovers in that last game. So most of it was like, and maybe there's this trade-off here, and Matt Brooks and I talked about that on our series preview of, like, you can't stop playing your game necessarily because you're afraid of something the other team might do. And maybe that's part of what's been going on. I think especially in game 2, I think even to a degree in game 3, even though we pulled it out at the end, is guys being hesitant to like make a pass because they don't want to turn the ball over, because we have had multiple 20 turnover games in this series, right? But then in those other 2 games, like, we limited turnovers, but like, what do you get out of that, right? Mm-hmm. We're an offense that passes the ball. And yeah, it's tough. I know Adelman talked about what they did on the practice day before game 4 was go over spacing possessions, right? And I was watching that game and thinking, so missing shots is one thing, but there were so many possessions where I'm like, do these guys know where they're supposed to be standing right now? Like, MPJ cutting into the lane while Jamal's driving when AG's already in the dunker spot. Just dumb stuff, right?
I know we are not seeing the same level of cutting and open cutting and Jokic getting the ball to them. I mean, it's happened a few times, and when it does, it almost feels jarring because we just haven't been seeing it as much as we normally do with this team, and it sucks to see because it's how we get a lot of really good looks. And I'm hoping we can find a way to open it up for the dudes. I'm glad Mike's still playing because that does provide some spacing despite the fact that he's hurt. And, Sean wasn't there last game, of course. But I'm glad he's there just for the spacing. I mean, people have talked about maybe benching him or not. I don't think we're going to do that at this point. He's playing through it. But 3 games left. I think he's still going to have a good shooting game or 2 left in him.
Can you hear that?
No.
Okay, good. I'm getting notifications. Okay, so I did want to talk about another question. This was from way, way, way earlier in the stream. I'm sorry if I forget who sent it, but someone asked about what we can do offensively to try and get Jokic going. And for that, I actually want to bring up a clip from a possession we had where OKC did something for SGA. So if you could pull up that possession from late in game 4 where SGA is trying to post up.
Yes. Let me grab that.
So one of the issues in this series is that we've been trying to do a bunch of, you can pause it for a second. We've been trying to do a bunch of empty side post ups for Jokic, right? So what we have here is a clip of a possession from late in game 4 where it's an out of bounds. I think, yeah, they had just gotten a stop and Dagnall's like, we want to try to score here because OKC had largely not been scoring in this quarter. They did win, but it wasn't on the back of their clutch offense, right? But out of bounds, SGA's got Christian on him again. And what Dagnall did was run this play. It's an empty side post up, and Shai largely hasn't been able to post up, but he's had success when he does because it gives you space and whatever. But unlike when the Nuggets run these empty side post ups for Jokic and there's no movement on the weak side, you see all of the movement from OKC here that's forcing our defenders to scramble and like make sure they're matched up to this guy, which is stopping them from being able to help on Shai posting up Christian, trying to drive, whatever, create the space for him to get this shot off. So MPJ is occupied with Chet. Jokic is also preoccupied with Isaiah Hartenstein here, which AG does tag because he's leaving Caruso, but Jokic is still like, he's not fully helping on Shai. So SGA largely is able to get comfortable here, unlike those other possessions where he's operating from the top of the key and we're able to zone up on him. I think we could do a little bit more of that for Jokic. Now, to be fair, it's like, do you want Jokic taking turnaround fadeaways from however many feet? Like, no, that's not necessarily his shot, although he can sometimes make, a midi. But with all the movement on the weak side, he can focus on trying to get the ball to the open guy, and OKC won't be able to help on him as much. And if they do, he'll be able to deliver that pass. I don't know that SGA necessarily would have been able to deliver this pass because most of his game is scoring. But with our, like I said, our help defenders all occupied with their guys running around, SGA is free to operate within a broader window of space and get to his spot and get a little bit more comfortable than he'd been throughout the game. I watched this possession live and I was thinking, why don't they do this literally all the time? And they just don't do this. Why doesn't OKC do this, but also Denver? Instead, we get a lot of stagnant empty side post-ups from Jokic. Not blaming Jokic, but like we don't have any movement on the weak side. And OKC is able to help without being punished for it, right? So I'm like, okay, if we're going to run an empty side post up, we need to have movement on the weak side. Otherwise, it goes back to my pet peeve with empty side spacing, whether it's a post up, pick and roll, ISO, whatever. That spacing, unlike when it's operating from top of the key, spread, pick and roll, whatever, or when Jokic is posting up from the middle of the floor, as we saw a lot of at the end of game 1, we haven't seen a ton of throughout the rest of this series, although even when Jokic has had those opportunities, he's struggled. Where it's harder to help off a guy because the kick out pass is obvious, like immediately obvious. We get this empty side stuff, stagnant, help, nothing going. So this is the kind of thing I would like to see from Denver if Jokic is like going to be intent on like, no, I want to figure out how to make the post ups work. Right.
Which we might need to. Getting any kind of consistent over-the-top shot from Jokic or anyone would be a huge shot to incorporate since they are trying to take away the paint. You don't want to necessarily settle for that because we saw how that went in the last game. So if there is a way to get the post-ups, like this is a really good point, and it's going to take effort and fresh legs, a lot of running around, keeping it up on the defensive end and the offensive end. It's definitely a big challenge. And we have, if this does go to game 7, you have to win 2 road games. So that's more travel. Man, how are you feeling about the series overall? Your game 5, your Thunder in 5 prediction didn't come to fruition, right? Thankfully.
Yeah.
Yeah, all this said, like we are talking a lot about like what went wrong. Of course, trying to figure out ways to get Jokic going. I think that's important. We should probably talk about Jamal in a second, but I'm still like holding out hope that the Nuggets can get this done. This is like a very challenging opponent for sure. Maybe like the most formidable opponent we faced in the playoffs with this healthy core together on the court.
I mean, as somebody who believes the regular season matters, I have to agree that this is the most formidable
Okay.
opponent that they've had.
Yeah.
68-win team with the, best point differential in NBA history or whatever, right? Um, I think after game 3, I thought, you know what? Denver probably gets at least one other game. I do think they can win the series, although I would have felt a lot better about it if they'd pulled out game 4, right? Obviously, going up 3-1 is big. But, the doomer that I am also probably would have been terrified that we blow a 3-point lead because they relaxed anyway. I just didn't expect game 4 to. I don't know that I expected Denver to win it,
Yeah.
but I didn't expect them to lose it like that, right? So, the way that these games have gone certainly gives me pause in terms of wanting to go closer to all in with this team because, again, like, need to see Jokic get going. I will say, like, the game 3 stuff and even like the second half game 4 stuff from Jamal has been encouraging because I think he was completely stifled in the first 2 games of this series. After game 1, I was thinking, like, this, like, I first of all, during game 1, I did not think they were going to win that game at the very end. So that was crazy. I was like, ugh, if Jamal's going to look like this, the series might be shorter than even I thought. But he's seems to have, like, gotten better with, like, a slight step back, but better as the series has gone along at, like, shedding his defenders, like getting to his spots, being aggressive, things like that. But Jokic has gotten worse.
Yeah, I'm just gonna play
Um,
some Jamal clips from Game 3 because that was just such a good game for him.
Yeah, no, go ahead, and I'll just talk about it a little bit. But yeah, Jamal was amazing in game 3. He totally helped carry us to victory. It wasn't just him. Like, I thought it was a total team effort of the guys that should have been an and one to help carry Jokic in this game because he was really struggling. I think game 3 was game 3 worse than game 4? Probably, like, as on an individual performance level, because he did, like, shoot worse in that game, and I was just like, I don't know what's going on with him. But yeah, Jamal was awesome. Dort has largely been more of a nuisance than a stopper, which is like, Jamal, like, kind of bullies him here, which is crazy because Dort's a tank. But yeah, Jamal's been able to get to his spots. He hasn't been attacking defenders in, like, the dumb ways. Like, here, Casey Wallace is a great isolation defender. He's great around screens as well, but Jamal is able to get to his step back, reads the defense well, and doesn't try to, force a drive that isn't there, gets to his step back and, makes that shot. So I do think they can win one more. Would I predict it? I don't know, because they have to win these games close. And like I said, these games are 50-50 when you're talking about 1 or 2 possessions. So can OKC get it done in 6? Yeah. But could it also go 7? I think there's like a 50-50 chance between a 6-game series and a 7-game series. Could Denver get it done in 6? I don't know. Like, if they make the next 2 games close and then they pull them out, I think they absolutely could do that too, because they've shown that they can win in multiple ways. One of the things I am wary of, though, is that the Russell Westbrook minutes have gotten worse and worse as the series has gone on. And it's not necessarily just because of Russ, but one of the things that had been floating those stagger minutes a little bit, where it's Russ and Peyton on the floor with Jokic, is Russ making his threes. And I'm almost afraid that he's kind of having that, like, Justin Holiday tail off at the end, the latter half of the series that we saw with Justin Holiday last year, where he was like nails from 3 for like 4.5 games. And we already saw him start to finally miss those corner threes in game 4. He did make one, I think. Russ has made a 3 in every single game. Anybody complaining about Russ's individual performance in these playoffs, by the way, is crazy. I think he's given us way more than even I thought he would to this point. But we're so, reliant on him that, again, to make these games close and just eke out various stretches and give us a spark, that that's another reason that I could see us losing a quick or what should be a close game, but then like we kind of let go of the rope late because we don't get that kind of spark. But I feel, that Denver has a better chance, obviously, than I thought they did at the beginning of the series when I predicted OKC in 5 is my final short answer on that one.
Yeah, I already said that I thought the Nuggets exceeded my postseason expectations by the way that they've competed with the Thunder specifically, and getting a lead in the series, chance to go 3-1. I mean, that's amazing, like compared to what we may have thought before going into the playoffs. But yeah, that loss still kind of got to me. But not giving up hope. I could see us losing Game 5, winning Game 6 at home, perhaps, and then it goes to Game 7, and it's like they haven't been in a Game 7 against a team like the Nuggets, so you never know what can happen there. So series definitely isn't over, despite the fact that we missed that opportunity to go up 3-1. And yeah, I think people are saying Dort's screen flops are so annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. They've been flopping a lot.
And the jersey grabbing.
And speaking of that, the Nuggets, people have been bringing up the fact that can't get frustrated at the refs. People are commenting Jokic may be too preoccupied with that. That's been an issue in the past with him where when he was younger, he needed to get over, and he's done a good job of doing that these last handful of seasons for sure. This one might be...
He's still had games in the last few playoff runs for sure. I think he's been it's been most games in these playoffs. It feels like to me, and a large part of it's because he's not shooting well. I think it's coming from frustration.
Yeah, he's definitely frustrated.
I would like to see Adelman kind of just take a tech and try to channel all of Jokic's frustration, anger somewhere else, so that Jokic doesn't have to feel like he's kind of fighting that battle by himself, because he needs to be fighting the actual basketball battle on the court. But yeah, I've not been impressed with how he's been handling the officiating and the physicality. OKC's doing what I expected them to do, right? They're fouling every possession. They're fouling everybody every possession. They're grabbing everybody's jersey every possession. They're hitting guys every possession. That's what they do. You don't become a number one defense by playing by all the rules, right? Especially because the rules are not being fully enforced in these playoffs, right? I think both teams have largely gotten good defensive whistles, and we know that because the Nuggets would not be able to defend the level they're defending at without some uncalled stuff, especially at the rim, because I think there's no way that we're holding OKC to middle of the pack rim efficiency without some uncalled things there.
Yeah.
But Jokic in particular is impacted because stuff inside is never called.
Yeah.
And even when it is, it's not going to be called every possession. It's just not. And that's the bet that OKC has made, and it's paying off so far. But you got to work through it. You got to just play through it.
I really do hate that it is a story, or I mean, not a story, but for us to be telling the story and talking about this, the fact that you do have to play through it, because you shouldn't have to do that necessarily, but that is just the reality of the NBA. There's been so many calls, people slapping Jokic on the wrists that goes uncalled, weird, just no consistency with how players are able to body him versus how you're able to put a body on Shai, for example. But we know I think
we talked about how good Christian has been on Shai. I fully expected him. He's playing 44 minutes a game right now, and he hasn't gotten close to fouling out despite being on Shai almost the entire time. So that tells you, Christian's not fouling the entire time that he's guarding SGA, to be clear.
Guards like SGA do get a lot of leeway with when they're contacted, especially on the shot. And there are times, even the clips we showed at the beginning of the show, that last one where Shai had a shot after we tied it before the end of regulation and went to overtime, and Shai had a chance to win the game. And CB put a good contest on them. I was worried.
That doesn't get called at the end of the game usually.
Yeah.
But that could have been called, and they didn't.
I didn't look at it too closely to see if it truly was a foul or not. But when I saw it live, I was like, oh my God, they could call this a foul. I'm always just afraid they're going to call something for SGA. And I just think Jokic, after dealing with this for so long and just the inconsistency and double standards by the nature of the fact that he's a big dude and the refs don't necessarily know how to officiate that on the floor, and like, they're letting guys be physical with him because he has like a size advantage. And I get like this like unwritten rule in the NBA where you allow more contact with post ups than you do on perimeter players. It's just like getting to him after all these years of it, and I get that. And I just hope it doesn't become too much of a distraction for him, because clearly he has a lot on his table in terms of figuring out this defense and still being effective on offense, despite the fact that he may have bumps and bruises all over his body and scratches, as we know he always does. So looking forward to a bounce-back game for Jokic on the road. It would be huge to steal this Game 5, which it could happen. It's not a foregone conclusion that we can't win road games just because we got blown out by 50 in the last one. We already won.
We won Game 1.
Yeah,
right.
We won Game 1. So and I think we have been pretty good road team overall this year, and the home court advantage is weird as hell across the playoffs. So you never know.
Yeah, no, I agree. We're actually gonna get to that in our next segment. Okay, I'm just scrolling through the chat, see if we have any more questions about Nuggets Thunder in particular before we move on to questions about other playoff series. Yeah, we got the comments about the jersey grabbing and Dort. Lots of comments about the officiating. It is very frustrating, and I understand that. We got a quick question about the defensive effort. I do want to comment on this. Yeah. Roly Poly asked, do you think defense is draining Jokic when it comes to offense? Absolutely. I think defense is draining all of these players when it comes to offense, but obviously Jokic is involved in almost every action just because of the nature of his position. And he's been playing pretty good defense, so I don't want to let that go unnoticed. But that's the thing, is like, you just got to figure it out, man. Like, just got to figure out how to still be effective on offense. Adelman made a really good comment in, forget which game it was, where we played a lot of zone. It was a loss. It was in the Clippers series. We played a lot of zone. It didn't work out. And in the post game, he talked about how sometimes the schemes that you use aren't necessarily about getting stops. They're just about getting your guys through the game. And my mind immediately went to like trying to get Jokic like rest possessions basically while he's on the floor, where he doesn't have to be necessarily as active defensively. And I do think that they're trying to, figure out ways to kind of load manage him within the game too. And that's what part of these zone possessions are for. But I think even the zone possessions with Jokic on the floor have been pretty good. But yeah, it's hard. Like, you got to play both sides of the ball. It's the playoffs, man. On this point, I had a comment about Adelman here I wanted to get back to, because we talked about how in Game 4 we played that zone stretch against J-Dub and it didn't really make sense. Jokic was not on the floor to start the fourth quarter of Game 4, and neither was SGA. And I have a thought about why we went to the zone with SGA off the floor. And it's because Dagnall changed his rotations in the first half. So in this game, in Game 4, in the first half, Dagnall changed SGA's rotation in the first quarter. Normally, SGA, like Jokic, plays the entire first quarter and comes back in a little bit after Jokic does in second quarter. And same with the third quarter, fourth quarter dynamic. But in this game, he got benched in the middle of the first quarter, or like taken out of the game. And then Dagnall put him back in right before the end of the quarter, and then he played the beginning of the second quarter against non-Jokic units, right? And I don't know exactly what Dagnall was thinking with that. I'm not saying it was good or bad, but I suspect that he wanted to first give Shai a breather, because it was clear that both teams were freaking gassed at the beginning of that game. The Thunder were up, but they weren't making a ton of shots either. And because they were up, I'm sure Dagnall felt like, okay, it's safe to like take him out for a little bit and we'll regroup. But the other thing is, when he gets to play against these non-Jokic units, they do a lot more switching. There's less. I don't remember if we changed Christian's rotation in response to that. By the way, I need to go back and look at that. But even if Christian was on the floor, those second units switch a lot more and make it easier for SJ to mismatch hunt. So maybe he had an opportunity to get going a little bit easier than he was against the starters. Dagnall did not mimic that change in the second half of this game. He went back to SJ's regular rotation, where it's the entire third quarter, and then he comes back midway through the fourth. But we started playing zone in those non-Jokic minutes, and I think it was thinking that SGA would be on the floor, so we just made that our game plan, and we did not adjust to that change because we had not been playing zone in those minutes, to my awareness in any stretch of this series. And that was where, Case and Wallace got his threes, and then obviously the Aaron Wiggins stuff as well. There were a couple of other instances throughout this playoffs that we've talked about on this show where I think Adelman was a game too late to adjust to something that seemed pretty obvious in terms of just a rotational change. The first one was in game 6 against the Clippers, where he ended up playing DJ against the Clippers bench, which made sense when at the beginning of the series, we talked about Ty Lue playing Zubats against the bench. And not that DJ's going to do well against Zubats, but maybe it's better to give DJ those minutes so that AG doesn't have to play those center minutes and be battling down low with him for that entire time, right? But in that game 6, it was the first game where Ty Lue goes small in the non-Jokic minutes. And Adelman did not adjust to that, and he played DJ. I think that was the second game, because he played DJ in game 5 too. Because they were still playing Zubats in those minutes. And Adelman did not adjust to that, and it was a disaster rotation. I think that the stretch wasn't as bad as -6 or whatever, but it was in a very short time span. And then again in this series, in game 2, which that was a total blowout. Nobody played well in that game. So this one was largely inconsequential. But in game 1, Dagnall plays Hartenstein against the bench. Or against the non-Jokic minutes, which is tough because he's a real center versus AG versus a small ball center that completely changes the dynamic of the floor. It's not just that one-on-one matchup, but it's how AG has to defend and the different actions that everybody else gets put into, the switching that happens that gives up those mismatches, etc. But in game 2, Dagnall played Chet against that bench. And so in game 1, where he played iHeart against the bench, AG's minutes got pretty destroyed because of everything I just said. In game 2, it was Chet in those non-Jokic minutes, and we decided to play DJ because I think that was he's kind of fighting yesterday's battle with some of these adjustments that he's making. And I wish he would notice it in real time. One of the things in the Clippers series I talked about was I clocked it. I'm making my game notes was Zubats plays entire first quarter. So it's okay, it's clear they're trying to match Zubats' minutes to Jokic now. So you could kind of anticipate that Zubats is not going to play the entire first quarter and then immediately start the second one, but we weren't able to make that anticipation. And it was the same thing in game 2 where maybe iHeart didn't play the entire first quarter in that game. And again, we were already getting blown out at that point, so maybe that one doesn't matter. But you got to see who's on the floor.
Yeah,
I feel there's been a little bit of not inflexibility, but just a lag in processing with some of these decisions.
What the reasoning would be for not answering those specific problems immediately versus just if it was a scheduled. This is what the rotation is now based on the last game.
Yeah,
that seems kind of crazy to me for a coach. But if Adelman is learning how to make those adjustments, this is his first head coaching role in a series this playoffs. So he has a lot to learn. I think, the fourth quarter did not make me higher on Adelman. I'll just say that. But I think I don't expect that he'll make as many mistakes like that for the rest of the series just because he's already learning and seeing what the Thunder are trying to do. They're not going to pull that many surprises out of the bag, so to say. So hopefully that'll stabilize. He'll become more consistent in these last 3 games with what we want to do and answer those problems right when they pop up.
Yeah, completely agree. And look, this is not a like, oh, Adelman's a terrible coach and like, oh, this is not that. It's just pointing out that there were clear, like, this seems like rookie stuff. And like, Adelman is not a rookie. He came in with 3 games left in the regular season. So I'm cutting this guy like the utmost slack, but it's just an observation of like, this is a little bit of what's happening with with the coaching in this series. And there have been lots of great adjustments too that we've talked about on this show. One of the things, like I said, I want to see, like, let's get Jokic operating more in the middle of the floor, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
I could talk about the Nuggets forever. Let's move on to talking a little bit about other playoff series before we end the stream.
And for you Nuggets fans that are still here, thank you for watching, sticking with us for a live show. It was fun talking Nuggets. Please stick around to hear some quick reactions for the rest of these series because, damn, some surprising results.
Absolutely. So first thing I want to ask you is just like, and Nuggets fans can still stick around because some of what we're talking about is still relevant here, but just like big picture things. What the hell is going on with home court advantage in these playoffs? Well,
I don't know. I have no idea what the hell is going on with that. Some people have speculated like 3-point shooting volume is like making the impact of it less potent because teams just hit shots. It's hard to keep up with that. Yeah,
but then there's like the saying of like role players shoot better at home, and sometimes that's true, sometimes that's not. Like 3-point shot variance is kind of weird. I think it's easy to point to the examples that kind of confirm that that belief. But yeah, I just wanted to like dig into some of the numbers because I was pretty appalled. So Carson Breber from Nerd Sesh, great channel, definitely check it out. So after the Celtics Knicks game on Saturday, home teams were 27 and 26 in the playoffs. So a game above 500 playing at home, which is kind of crazy. Since then, the Warriors lost at home to the Wolves that same day. The Nuggets lost at home to the Thunder yesterday, and the Pacers won at home versus the Cavs. So now we're at 28 and 28, exactly 500. Home court has so far meant nothing in these playoffs, right? Denver has split their home games in both of these series. Actually, that's far. Like when you're talking about like the first 2 home games that they have in a series, and also split the road games. They've finished both of the first 4 games 2-2 between the Clippers and Thunder. I think that's one of the things that has made me a little bit more optimistic, despite I think blowing like a pretty big opportunity to go up 3-1 against the Thunder is like, look, maybe Thunder home court doesn't mean that much. Maybe home court in general doesn't mean that much, but yeah, it's pretty weird. I don't know that it's shot variance, though.
It might not be. I mean, there was an interesting idea where, crowds are maybe more intense and into the game in the playoffs, obviously, versus the regular season. So they're just like louder and crazier and affecting the players more, which is why I think statistically and historically, home court advantage gets more potent in the playoffs. But it's just like, this playoff's not quite panning out to the level that we thought. Like, it used to be where if any team wins a road game, it was like series altering. It was like you would expect every team to win both of their home games, like back to back. And now it's like trying to beat a team in the playoffs 2 times in a row seems like a big challenge.
Maybe like I think it is more like the parity question, right? So especially when you're talking about the first 2 games of a series. Usually the team that has home court is the better team by some margin, right? You can't necessarily say that in the Nuggets instance obviously in round one, this is a 4 and a 5 seed. Like, we won the same number of games. We had the same point differential on the season, which is very funny. And even though the Clippers offense wasn't as good as everybody said it would be against us, I'm going to victory lap about that a little bit, because I think all of these offensive have largely not been very impressive in the playoffs. Those teams were pretty close to each other, but like, with the exception of the 1st and 8th seeds, and in the East, it was the 1st seed against the 10th seed, because the Miami Heat became the first 10 seeds to make the playoffs. Those other series were like, okay, yeah, the Celtics swept the Magic, and I'm not going to say it was a close sweep, but those games were tough, right? Like, those were not easy games for Boston. Who was the 2 seed? Oh, in the West, the Houston Rockets versus the Warriors, right? I just think that every team, has their strengths, but to a degree, we talked about this a little bit on the last show. The playoffs are more about your weaknesses, and every team is flawed now, including the teams at the very top. So once you get to the playoffs, like, that's where if you're facing a team that's like good enough, like beyond a certain threshold, they can have a chance at beating you, because the playoffs are about figuring out ways to expose the other team's weakness.
Yeah, there used to be just a handful of teams at the top that were so suffocating that, yeah, beating them at home seems almost impossible. But now it's like, yeah, there's openings everywhere, and things are becoming so matchup dependent, which is what the NBA wants with the parity. I don't know how I feel about it yet. We're about to see possibly some dynasties popping up, but the draft lotteries tonight, I'm so nervous about that. I'm going to be watching that with like bullets sweating down my head as I see where Cooper Flag goes. Caitlin, I hope he ends up on the Wizards for you. And just not in the West. But I heard some interesting theories that whoever wins the 1st seed or the 1st pick could trade that to get Giannis, which is kind of funny to think about.
What if the Cavs go get Giannis? Like, let's talk about some of the other series, because that Pacers-Cavs game that happened in the afternoon yesterday, the time slot that the Denver Nuggets Thunder game probably should have been, because we are not on the Eastern time zone, or one of the easternmost time zones. That was crazy. Did you watch any of that game, by the way?
No, I just saw the score that was 39-80 at halftime.
So I tuned in almost at the end of the first quarter. So the Pacers were already up big, but it wasn't an insurmountable deficit. I was just like, okay, the Cavs are off to a slow start. They need to, pick it up, trying to get things going. By second quarter, it was clear that the Pacers were like very much in control of that game, and the Cavs couldn't get anything going offensively. They were really struggling against Indiana's full court pressure, which was interesting. Like, I complained earlier in the season about how Denver was handling pressure, and how OKC, like, that was one of the methods by which they kind of chip away at your constitution, like your offensive constitution on the margins, was full court pressure. Indiana has been doing this really since last playoffs. Like, last year's playoffs, full court pressure was a really important way in which they wore down the Knicks, or what was left of the Knicks, by the end of that series. And it's crazy, because the Cavs, you're like, okay, well, at least in this game, like, everyone's back. They've got Garland, they've got Mitchell, they've got Ty Jerome. They've got Max Strus, who, like, isn't a creator, but he can bring the ball up some. And they could not beat Indiana's full court pressure. Like, they were just being pressed the entire game, getting into everything slow, not really able to get anything going. And, like, Garland is coming back from an injury, and so he wasn't good in this game. So it was once again all on Donovan Mitchell, and he, like, couldn't deliver another heroic performance, right? But I was annoyed earlier in the season, because I'm like, is full court pressure really the beta? Like, is that the thing? Is that the thing that, like, solves modern NBA offense finally? All the hoop heads who want #real hoops and, like, ugly games, they're just like, just full court pressure. Just have a bunch of guys you can throw at the dudes on the other side that can full court press them. And that's what Indiana has done. One of the and Indiana has gotten better defensively, both as this season has gone along, but also dramatically from last season. And pressing full court is one of the ways that they, trip it away at the other team's offensive margins. They keep you from getting into your early offense. One of the things that we talked about with the Thunder is like, what is this team's advantage? Like, what is the margin that they want to build and hold in this series? It's like turnovers. They turn you over a lot and they don't turn the ball over, right? Indiana's, it's harder to measure, but they play fast and they keep you from playing fast, right? That's what this constant pressure is accomplishing.
And you saw that lead they built. Yeah.
The Cavs completely let go of the rope before the halftime, right? Because I think the Pacers were up 17 with like 2.5 minutes left in the half. And then the Cavs like let them go on a 19-2 run over the last 2.5 minutes of that half. That was...
Yeah, I know the Cavs have had injuries. The Pacers still might have beat the Cavs even without that. They look so good. And comment in the chat saying, been shooting above 50% from the field in all games except for their one loss. So they're a very potent offense. Bad luck, though, seems to be coming to claim the Cavs. It kind of already claimed the Bucks with Dame's injury, though. I don't know that they would have won anyway. Cavs, Pacers would have been amazing to see if all was healthy and all was equal. And I don't know how the Warriors are going to go because Steph has his hamstring and the Wolves are winning every game right now. So could see another series go an unfortunate way because of an injury. But we never know. Steph's scheduled to try to come back, hopefully by Game 5.
It probably won't be till Game 6, though. It depends on how the rehab's going, how the treatment's going. But I think they tend to be pretty careful with him. And I don't know if the series is kind of like, this is over. Are they going to be like, okay, we'll give you one last game with your team? Or are they going to be like, we can't risk you getting hurt? But I think he plays, right? Because after this, like, you're going to have the whole summer to recover. That's plenty for a hamstring, right? It's not like, I don't know.
It's one of those things where it's like the staff can only do so much. They're not going to tell Steph what to do at that point.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
I also feel like the Celtics still can win this series.
Yes, absolutely, right. So they came back. The thing is, like, this is really funny, by the way, with this Pacers-Cavs series. In the 2 games that Indiana took in Cleveland led by large double digits, not just like 10, 11, like teens to 20s in both of those first 2 games. And Indiana came back and stole them at the end. And then the Cavs came back. They took their double-digit lead again in Game 3, and they just held it. And then in Game 4, it was just wire-to-wire Pacers control.
Yeah.
So that was just a complete flip of the series. We already talked about how, no team has ever won a series controlling or like leading less than 13% of the time. The Pacers, I think, have already flipped that dynamic with this last game, right? Like they've definitely... If they're leading for a whole game out of 4, that's already the 25% that they need to, check off that threshold. In the Celtics, same case. First 2 games against the Knicks, and they're leading the entire time. They take massive double-digit leads, over 20-point leads in the third quarter, and the Knicks just chip away and take them at the end. And I think the first game, was that in overtime? Is that right?
Not sure.
And then in Game 3, they just take their lead and they hold it, which I found to be interesting. Because I think in Warriors-Wolves in Game 1, the Warriors led the whole time in that first game. But the Nuggets had a similar big comeback against the Thunder, who led almost the entire game. I think Denver led early, but then OKC took the lead in the late first quarter, early second, and then didn't look back until the last 2.5 seconds of that game, right? Yeah. And that's, we talked about why that dynamic is interesting. But that's the thing with Pacers, Cavs, and with Celtics, Knicks is well, differently now because the Pacers have shown like, no, we can lead the entire time too. The Knicks have not shown that they can like look like the better team for most of a game.
Yeah, they're just
Right.
out executing them late and like getting like clutch shots and performances, and the Celtics
Yeah.
are kind of going away from certain schemes and players and like letting
And
Jaylen
Jason
Brown
Tatum like
operate.
can't hit anything.
Yeah, it's just like weird
Yeah.
decisions, and but never really felt like the Celtics were completely out of it, even down 0-2, just because they're so good and
Yeah, agreed.
because of how those
Agreed.
games have been going. But like a Celtics
I
Pacers series,
think
even a
didn't
Pacers Knicks series would
the
be
Knicks
fun.
won both by one possession. I think the second game they won by 1 point.
Yeah,
Right?
probably. Yeah, yeah. Some
Yeah.
amazing go-ahead buckets by Jalen Brunson.
Jalen Brunson, inefficient, but there when you need him. Um, that series has been, I think all these series have been more interesting than I thought they would be. I thought I'd only be following like one Eastern Conference series closely, and it wasn't going to be Celtics Knicks. I said Celtics in 5 too.
I mean, a Celtics
Right?
Knicks rivalry is really cool. You got the Boston and New York thing going on. Didn't we get that last year? But it was just like a shitty series. I don't remember.
No, it was the Knicks. Who
It
did
was
the Knicks play in the
Pacers
first
Celtics in the
round?
Western Conference Final. The
Yeah,
Pacers
yeah,
beat
yeah.
the
Pacers
Knicks. Yeah.
Celtics. And I thought that if the Pacers matched up with the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals this year, they could definitely beat them. And that was before I saw them against Cleveland. Um, but I thought that Cleveland would beat them, and now that's not looking too hot, obviously, right? I mean, do you think that Cleveland can come back from a
No,
3-1 deficit?
I think they're done.
So, I've never followed a team that went down 1-3 and then came back and won a series. You obviously have, because I was not yet a Nuggets fan when they did that twice.
hmm
um, what are the characteristics of a team that can both go down 3-1 and also come back from it?
Yeah, I mean, when that happened, I don't think anyone knew that the Nuggets had any kind of characteristic that would result in that outcome. And then once you saw them do it, you proved that they could. But I think like with the Nuggets, they're a team that plays so much better with urgency and their backs against the wall, which is partly why I also think they lost the last game and why I still think we can win this series, because now it's like just more urgent. So I think there's that aspect of it, is just playing your best when you have to, like under pressure. So you got to have that. You got to still be tough and physical, which I think the Nuggets are for sure. And you got to have like really solid offensive options to go to when the game gets tight. Like Jokic was like that. Jokic and Jamal were like that in the bubble. Like have either one could have like an offensive explosion for sure, and like match what the other team is doing when they're like putting on the pressure and they're scoring a lot too. Man, the Cavs came back 3-1 on the Warriors in the
True.
greatest championship upset I've ever seen, possibly.
Well,
But
yeah, because you hate the Warriors.
yeah, exactly.
So there probably was
And
nothing better.
it was, yeah, euphoric. But yeah, that one, it's just like taking one game at a time and not getting like too ahead of yourself and getting too down, and just like sticking to what you do well and just chipping away at it, not getting too high, not getting too low, which Jokic is really good at. I think Jamal kind of adopts that as well from Jokic. I don't know. But also you got to be healthy, and I just think the Cavs aren't. So that's why in this case I think
Yeah.
that they don't have a chance to do that.
That letting go, like, it'd be one thing if they lost this game to the Pacers because they did control, like I said, basically from the beginning of this game, and Garland was just coming back. Like, I think they performed better in the game that they lost at home in game 2, where they didn't have Garland, Mobley, or DeAndre Hunter than they did in this game. And I think it was like a reintegration thing. They're coming back from injury thing, all this stuff. And these guys are probably still a little injured and they just don't put it on the injury report. So that's just what happens when the playoffs roll around. But the way they let go of the rope, it just felt like they were like, oh, our season's over. And you never want to see that from a team. But but like, I don't know. I've heard conflicting reports about what the Nuggets looked like in those first 4 games against the Jazz, for example, in the bubble. Like, Did they look like that too? Where it's just like, ugh, this sucks.
They didn't
Like,
look like horrible, but we were just getting beat, and we were like sticking with them, but had some amazing Jamal
yeah.
games. But yeah, I don't think we didn't look like as bad as that game for
Yeah,
sure.
that was really tough. Someone was comparing it to uh Suns Mavs game 7. Or Mavs Suns, I guess, whatever, from 22. Is that right?
Hmm.
And it's tough. It was a tough watch, I think, in the second half, because Cleveland. It's not that in the second half the bench guys especially were trying. I think one of the things that Cleveland has suffered from is one, Garland hasn't been as good. It's clear that he has been hampered. The team doesn't gel as much when everything is running through Donovan. Like he can
Hmm.
still like put up all massive points. They can score a lot. Like the offense can on paper look good, but it doesn't gel. Like things aren't flowing as easily when it's all him. And Ty Jerome just has not been
Hmm.
anywhere close to what he was in the regular season. And I think that like he helped to elevate them too. Like when he's good, everybody's good because of just the way that he plays.
And he's a guy
Right?
who
Like he
has
plays
to learn
off of
this.
other guys and like makes everything feel a lot better. So when he's off, it's like, ugh. When he's
Yeah.
on, it can look really good. But
And
he has not been good at all in this series.
playoff experience is a tough learning curve sometimes. So you gotta like learn how to bring it in the biggest moments and learn how to make win plays over time. It's not just lean on your talent type of thing. So the more that you've been there, the easier it is to muster it up. And yeah. Also, who do you want to win in Warriors Wolves? Because if we do get past OKC, I'm assuming you want Warriors.
Yeah, I don't want the
Okay.
freaking Wolves. Like, plus, well, I don't know. I can't afford it, but maybe I could go outside the Chase Center here
Oh
and maybe
yeah,
watch a
get some
game
Nuggets games. We can
if
only
they come
hope.
to the Bay. So that would be my pick there.
Nice.
Um, so that would be my pick. And I don't think that the Warriors are going to win this series anymore. Like they needed stuff. I think they absolutely would have won, especially after seeing the Wolves in the first 3 games, like
Hmm.
sputtering basically offensively in all of these games. I think they made some shots in game 2, but it still wasn't particularly impressive. Uh, I'm like, man,
Yeah.
I would have picked Warriors in 5 if I knew that the Wolves were going to look like this. Uh, Obviously not if I knew that stuff was going to be injured.
I didn't
'Cause the
think there'd be
Warriors
a
can't score
scenario
either.
where I'd want the Warriors to make the conference finals again, but here we are. I'm going for them over Wolves for sure. So
Yeah. I mean, it would have been great if they didn't blow that last game, because they definitely had it in hand. It was a missed opportunity,
mm,
just like our last game, where they
they
could
can.
have guaranteed at worst a tie, or at least like guaranteed a game 6 before Steph comes back. But now it's like, I don't know, the Wolves might just send these boys packing before Steph even has a chance to suit up. So that's really tough. Scrolling the chat here, I see Caitlin says, I heard Will's favorite team in the playoffs is the Warriors. Will, is that
Well,
true?
it's because I have to root for them so much over these teams, like the Rockets and the Wolves.
You didn't have to root for them against the Rockets. The Rockets didn't necessarily scare me, although.
No. I just like. They didn't earn it yet. They got to lose. They can't just win the
Oh,
first
right.
playoff
Will doesn't
series.
like young teams. They need to go through the hazing.
Yep.
Um, let's see. Oh, we had a question from offline from Pete, who is not able to be in the live stream. He was the one that asked the question about what the Nuggets could do to create better
Oh.
looks. So Pete, you should check out the answer that I had about what OKC did to get Shai better opportunities on his post ups. Add movement. But there has to be good timing, just like right, like be a good offensive team again. Just like stick to those principles. Screen well, cut at the right times, be in rhythm. Hard against this OKC defense, to be fair, but it's like, well, what makes a good offensive team a good offensive team is that they can be good defenses, right? Like Uh, yeah. All right. I think that about wraps it up for our first live stream. How do you feel about how this went? Well,
It was great. Thank you all for typing in the chat and liking the video and hanging out and saying hello. That was really cool. If you're catching this live or listening to this point or watching the replay, come for the next time we do this. Hopefully we'll do it more and we'll figure out ways to like get your guys' comments up on the stream and all that as we go on and keep up the production value.
yeah. And remember to like and subscribe. Trying to get to that
Yes.
1,000 subs. If you're in here, you're probably already subscribed, but do it again.
Yes, please do.
Use your burner YouTube account and also subscribe to the channel that way. We really appreciate it. Thanks for all your questions, guys. And we hope to be doing more of this stuff as the playoffs go along. It's good for like the instant reactions. Gonna get a little bit slightly less in-depth stuff, but we'll try to, sprinkle in some of those too, where we break down plays more in depth and things like that. But it's good to get a show out after these games so we can emotionally process.
Yep. And yeah, Snoozer says, tell your friends and enemies, which is a Grace line. And
Thank
Caitlin
you,
says,
Snoozer.
share with
Yes.
your pets.
Share with your pets too. Subscribe with your pets YouTube channel.
Yep.
All right, well, take us out.
Okay, yeah. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.